But that particular cable, it is really quite concerning. I mean, often cables are written in such a way where you have to read between the lines or look what is not said. In this particular cable, it's just all hanging out, a whole lot of Machiavellian schemes to overthrow the Syrian government.
And it's predating any of the human rights demonstrations against the Assad government?
It predates the demonstrations in 2011.
How do you think, despite, as the book says, the US laid the foundation for sectarianism in places like Syria, causing bloodshed on an unimaginable scale?
What's happened in Syria is really very serious. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people now dead in Syria.
And killing work with the free market and the use of free markets.
This interplay between big American companies and the State Department and the US military is something that's well documented in the cables. You can see all over the world US embassies acting as a sales agent for Boeing, for Monsanto, lobbying to adjust European law, even to create sanctions or other penalties in relation to Europe for not accepting genetically modified organisms or forcing labeling. Well, the US empire, and it is correct to use that word, it's not an empire in the classical sense. It's not like the Roman Empire. It's a little bit like the British Empire, but different. It's a modern empire. You wouldn't expect an empire in a modern age to look like an old empire. Now there's a continental expansion of the United States. Yes, it has grabbed other territories like Hawaii and effectively Puerto Rico and Alaska. But the predominant form that the US empire has is an empire of US bases, now more than 1,400 US military bases in over 120 countries dotted around the world, and an empire of trade. And it uses these mechanisms of its embassies, of its military bases, of its presence in organizations like the UN and IMF in order to secure advantageous deals and structures for the largest American companies. Interestingly, not for the average American worker. So when you hear about American interests, it's not the interests of the average American that are being pursued. Of course, it's the interests of the companies that are close enough to the government to be able to have their interests reflected in what US ambassadors do around the world.
And hand in hand with the banning of information that you were talking about earlier, they have lots of different non-military, at least on the surface, sounding organizations that are massaging sovereignty, as it were.
Yeah, one of the most important documents we've ever published is the Unconventional Warfare Manual. And what is unconventional warfare? So unconventional warfare is warfare performed through the use of surrogate forces to overthrow a government. That's essentially infiltrate, train, and overthrow. It's what happened, for example, in Afghanistan. It's what happened in Nicaragua. Now that manual is active policy now in the United States. It's active military doctrine, and it describes that when the United States needs to do something, it pulls together the various arms of American power. Yes, those include the military arm, which we're very familiar with. They also include the intelligence arm, the financial arm, the commercial arm, and its informational power, and its diplomatic power. They bring all of these together in order to push on a country, in order to get it to do what the US government wants it to do, to work in tandem. And under financial power, yes, the IMF is explicitly listed. What I find very interesting about this convergence of different forms of American power together to achieve an end result. Formal policy, and it comes together in practice, is actually to pull together all these different agencies, which might seem like they're working different beats, and push them together in sort of pincer formation on a country to achieve a result. Obama has prosecuted more whistleblowers under the Espionage Act than all previous presidents combined.
He probably wouldn't say it's dissent, he'd probably say that was leaking of secrets.
More than twice as many. Now, of course, he says that that's espionage. There's no allegation that any of these people have given their secrets to a foreign government or working with a foreign government. Allegations are they're working with the media.